It is 12:59. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. The Titans are set to host their pre-draft press conference here in just a few moments, so we will let you get right to it. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. We await Chad Brinker, Mike Berganzi, and Brian Callahan hitting the podium later to this in just a few moments at some point. You know, Jackson, I thought, would buy us a little bit of time with a longer update, but he kind of hung us out to dry, and I think it's because he kind of screwed up the last few updates he's done.
No, it's because I didn't want to be in the middle of a point, see them up, and go, oh, crap, and have to send it.
That's not true.
So, Blaine, I want to, I've talked about the draft guide a few times, and while we wait, I just wanted to show you physically. This is our draft guide that me and Stoney worked on all offseason.
Oh, that's pretty impressive, man. When you sent it to me, I was like, oh, my God. I don't know if I could concentrate that long.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough, but I printed it today. And, this is the first time we printed one out. And this is double-sided.
Oh, wow.
That's how crazy this is. This is
I'm going to give you a hint. That's exactly how the playbook looks.
Oh, yeah? Oh, my God. There you go.
That's exactly. And I'm going, they think these guys are going to learn this. When I looked at that thing, my rookie year, I was like, oh, man, this thing looks like an encyclopedia, man. What are they doing?
I mean, I couldn't believe it when I actually picked it up. In my head, for whatever reason, I thought like over 200-something pages would have been like really, a lot thinner than it was. And I'm like, oh, my God. I had to get tabs because I was like, there's no way we're going to be able to flip through this thing quickly on air because we're using this. Because on
see the front cover? Let me see the front cover.
It's just a basic generic player.
We got to post that up.
Yeah. Man. We got the stackinginbox.com, and I'll be talking more about it on 3HL. And their presser is here. So we're going to go live to St. Thomas Sports Park. Chad Brinker, Mike Berganzi, Brian Callahan.
The support staff has been involved. There's been a lot of change. We've changed a lot of things as far as our processes, our grading scale. So they've been through a lot, and I appreciate everybody's commitment to this process and being flexible and adapting to how we're moving forward. But there's a lot of work that's gone into this. We're well prepared. We're ready to go. Like I said back in January, we're going to be a draft and develop franchise, and this is our opportunity to really build the foundation of this football team through the draft, and the culture of our football team will run through the draft. So this is a big weekend for us. We're ready to go. We'll go ahead with questions at this time.
How much do you guys, with the picks you have and where you have them, do you think you can, how much of your roster issues can you solve with this draft?
Yeah, I think we have 8 picks, and we're going to do as much as we can with those 8 picks. If they turn into more picks, we'll see how the draft goes and unfolds. But we certainly have a lot of needs in the team right now. So, we're going to do our best to, stay true to the board, draft the best player available, not really reach for needs at this point. But this is a big opportunity for this organization, really a tone setter, this draft, for the guys that we bring in here right now.
What have you guys learned about Cam over the last even several weeks that maybe you didn't know at the start of the process? Yeah.
Well, I think we just got to meet the person, right, and got an opportunity to sit down with him multiple times, whether it be the combine, the pro day, his private workout. Got to meet his family. The competitive edge that he has, you can feel that talking with the kid. He's very intelligent. We've had him on the board several times with Brian, and just the family. He comes from a great family as well.
If you guys do in fact take a quarterback, whether it's Cam, Shador, Dart, whoever, what do you feel you have in place to not ensure, but to make his path to success better than some of the previous quarterbacks within this organization?
I think one of the things unique to my journey in this profession is I've done it before too. You know, I've been a part of a young quarterback, number one overall pick, coming into a team that picked number one for a reason. You know, and we weren't good enough last year, so we're picking first, and we have a chance to add a really good player with the first overall pick, whatever it ends up being. But there is a lot of things that I learned from that first lesson of when you bring in a player like that, that'll help us in the process. So I think we've added the right players in free agency. I think we have good young players here, and we got to do a lot better job coaching, first and foremost, and put ourselves in some better positions. So those things to me are all part of the equation, and I feel good about where we're at and where we're headed and how we're going to get there.
As you went through the process, you said at the Senior Bowl that the process had just begun and that, you know, nobody had jumped to the forefront the way Joe Burrow did when you were in Cincinnati. Was there a key point in this whole thing where when you met with Ward, you said, this guy's got some of what we're looking for?
I think for me it was to how Mike has explained it the whole time is that there was a process to it. We went through all of it from start to finish. Our opportunities to meet with all the players that we met with are all critical points in the evaluation process, and we found ourselves with a really clear vision of what the draft board looks like for us at every position and every round for where we're at. So a ton of trust in Mike and how he went about it. It was really fun to watch those guys with Dave Ziegler and Reggie along with them. Put us in a great spot, and I think we're prepared. The work's been done. There was no particular point anywhere for any of these players that is an aha moment. It's a culmination of all the data points you get and a culmination of all the film and the opportunities to meet and greet all these guys. You know, we brought 30 players in on top of it from around college football, and we've had our coaches have been busy with Zooms and we've done all the work we can do on as many players as possible. So I think that's at the end game is what we were hoping for is to run a very disciplined process, and I commend Mike and Chad and those guys in the front office for leading that. It's been a lot of fun to watch.
Throughout this process, you've talked about your desire to have like 9 or 10 picks each year, ideally, and also to try to get back into the top 100 if at all possible. If you are forced into a situation where you kind of have to choose between those two ideas, what's more important to you in this draft?
Well, I think just having a strategy, and that's really what we've been doing here the last week or so, just working the board horizontally and just seeing the value of each position group. And I think that's how you have to base the decision on. You know, if there's a player there at a certain spot and we think it's the best value for us, you know, we're going to take that player. But if we deem there's a cluster of players on that board that we kind of have the same value on, then maybe we move back and pick up a pick. But I think it really depends on how the board falls. But really the preparation we've put in the last couple of weeks, just working the board horizontally and just seeing where the value lies at certain pockets of the board will come into play there.
How many conversations have you had about the 35th pick in particular, and maybe your list of guys that you would say if he's here, it's going to be a hard decision to move off of this pick?
Yeah, that's part of it. That's part of the strategy. We've had those conversations here, especially over the last week. You know, Chad, Brian, myself, Reggie, Dave. We've gone through the whole thing, and that's part of it. You know, you have to be prepared at a certain point. If these players are on the board, if there's a few players that are there, you know, do we not move and take that player, or are there a few players there that we can move back and maybe pick up a pick? So those conversations have been ongoing here the last week or so.
I guess at pick, 2 days out, is it safe to say you know who you're picking at 1, and if so, what would it take to maybe change your mind at this point?
Yeah, no, we've come to a consensus. The entire organization is to stay at that pick, and I guess you'll find out Thursday night who we pick.
Did you have a lot of offers or a lot of interest from other teams?
There was interest. Yeah, I thought that was, you know, doing our due diligence and going through the process to listen to those offers. And there were. I don't want to go into specifics of what the offer was or what the teams were, but there were offers.
At what point did you guys come to that consensus?
You know, it's such a long process here, and we wanted to go through the whole thing. I don't know if there was a certain point along the process, but we were listening the whole time. And then, you know, as we got towards the end of the process, you know, we decided as an organization we're going to stay.
Chad, you brought Dave in here obviously a couple of months ago. What's it been like to kind of watch him work, and what have you maybe learned about him through this process?
Yeah, you speaking of Mike?
Right.
Yeah, Mike. Yeah, I think he's been really impressive in how thorough he's been, the discipline he's had throughout this entire process. This takes me back to how I grew up in this business, and I think the really cool thing about he and I is we were trained very similarly. But at the same time, we came to this with different ideas, core principles that we believe in, but also different ideas on how to approach things. And when you get in that room, we've had a lot of really good conversations. There's been a lot of late nights together, and sometimes we don't always see the player exactly the same, but we let the process to work through that, with all of us understanding that we're trying to make the best decision for the Tennessee Titans. And if you keep that in mind, you can work through that with Coach and everybody that's been involved in this. It's just been really fun. Not only Mike, but also Dave and Reggie coming in. There was a night I was sitting there and I looked around the room. These guys don't know it, but I was just thinking about like, wow, this is between the four of us in this room right now, there's 9 Super Bowls. We've all been part of winning championships in our careers. We know what winning football looks like. Coach as well, he's won a Super Bowl, so you've seen what that looked like. And it just seems like as of today, we get the first pick in the draft. We couldn't be any further away from where we want to be. But this is the beginning of it. If you're a true personnel man, this is what you want. You want the opportunity to really build a team from the ground up, and Mike's getting every opportunity to do that, and I know he's excited about it.
For both of you, Mike, you said you want to be directed by need, but there's clearly not a top number 1 edge rusher on this team. You're clearly thin at wide receiver. How are you not directed by need, given those 2 key positions and where you stand?
Yeah, and that's part of staying true to the board. I think you're trying to marry up, the need with the value too. You never want to force a need in the draft. And for us, we do have a lot of needs, so I think it's important for us to stay true to the board and really take the best available player, at that pick. But for us, like I said, we don't want to force needs here and force a pick based on that.
Chad, you spin it back to...
You're thinking on that?
What's that?
On needs, not directing you at those 2 positions?
Yeah, I think, I feel the same way. I mean, you want to take the best player available. Everybody says that. Not everybody follows that. The times in my career where I've seen we've made mistakes, either earlier in my career to even some of my mentors, when you kind of reach on a player based off need. Like Mike just said, I mean, we got a lot of needs. So we're just going to trust the process. We're going to trust the board. We're going to let the board talk to us. The work has been done. We're prepared. Now, the draft is unpredictable at times, and I know we're picking at the top, so maybe a little bit more of an understanding of who might be there, who might not be there. But at the same time, we're prepared for whatever comes at us, and we just got to take the best player.
Chad, if you spin it back to Miami's pro day, Cam, he rolls out, throws to Restrepo, and he says to you guys, I solidified it. What does that say about his confidence, and how much did that kind of resonate with you that he, in the middle of the workout, took the time to send that message?
Yeah, I think you got to get to know Cam to understand that, his personality. I think we enjoyed it. It was a cool moment. Cam's he's confident. I wouldn't say he's cocky. I think there's a fine line between the two, and he carries himself the right way. I just appreciate the way he approaches the game, his competitiveness, and just the way he plays the game with a quiet mind and the confidence that he has. I think that's been impressive.
With the needs that you guys have, as being so many, and you're kind of bottom heavy in terms of 6 or 8 picks or day 3, can you find immediate starters with day 3 picks out of this draft?
Well, I think that's part of projecting players, and that's really where the scouting really comes into play. When you're in those middle rounds to late rounds, and can you project players to be starters eventually? So I think it can be done. In the past, I'm sure Chad's gone through the same thing in Green Bay. We've picked players in 6th, 7th round that have turned into starters. So that's part of the scouting process, is try to project players that can, some of these guys later rounds, do they have traits to be starters? So that's a big part of the process for us, is identifying those players that someday could become starters even though they're drafted in these later rounds.
So how do you weigh the premium on players that are ready to play now versus players that might have those traits 2-3 years down the line?
Well, you're trying to take the best. The part of the draft process is projecting, like 2-3 years from now, what they're going to be. So for us, we're trying to take, what's this player going to look like in year 2 or 3? And that's really where I think the good teams separate themselves in these later rounds, when you're really digging on this talent and you're really trying to find, what are the certain traits that are going to project this guy to one day be a contributor or a starter at that level.
Brian, this is for you, and if you guys want to chime in, go ahead. But when it comes to going through this process in dissecting these quarterbacks, how much did Cam Ward, going through the places he went to with 3 different offensive coordinators and being able to really catch on quickly to each system, how does that come into play when you are deciding if he could be right for your place?
I think he's had a unique journey. I think the landscape of college football has changed in the last handful of years with the amount of opportunity guys have to transfer. I think there's a world now where there's some players that you see nowadays that maybe 10 years ago you might not have ever heard of them. And I think the opportunities for these guys, because of the way the transfers work, especially the quarterback position, because only one guy gets to play. And these guys have had unique journeys, Cam in particular, to get to where they are, because they've had to learn new teammates and new locker rooms and new systems. All those things factor into it. So there's a little bit less guesswork when it comes to their ability to learn, their ability to assimilate into a locker room, their ability to get along with coaches and to take coaching. And now we also, in Cam's particular case, you got 3 schools worth of people you can talk to, as opposed to 1. And there's a lot of different opinions that get had. And you get coaches that had him when he was 18, and you get coaches that now had him in his last season. So I think it's actually really a benefit for some of these quarterbacks, because they eventually enter into a lot of the challenges they enter into when they come to the NFL, because they're learning something new. They're learning new people, new faces, a new way of doing things, whether it's a college or an NFL team. So I think a lot of these guys do have some advantage in that nowadays, even though I know it's not what everybody likes to hear. But there is something about that process that allows you to get a fuller picture for who they are as a person and how they learn and their ability to navigate change.
Brian, I think you referenced at the combine that you guys might be interested in another running back, maybe a different type running back. I guess I can see how you would want a different, size player perhaps, but is there generally room for a 3-back rotation on most teams, do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to have 3 good backs nowadays. Injury is always a part of it too. It's a violent position. Those guys take a lot of hits. They take a pretty good beating on a week-to-week basis. And so you're trying to stay as fresh as possible for as long as possible. There is guys that can carry the load and do that on their own, and there's some good ones out there. But I think there's also a place for a division of labor and shared workloads, and it keeps guys fresher longer. So yeah, there's definitely room for 3 backs. You can find all kinds of ways to use those players. I thought both Tony and Tajay had really pretty good seasons from top to bottom. We're looking for more, I think, at the end of the day. But there's a style of runner that you'd love to add, but I think just having another good 3rd back and the special teams role for the 3rd back as well. I thought Julius Chestnut did some nice things in a limited sample size, but we're looking to keep adding competition and keep adding players to that room, and hopefully we can find the 3 best ones come September.
Mike, if you were to trade a veteran on your roster during this draft, you feel like you'd need 2 picks back in order not to be in a situation where you're just using one of your picks to replace the player you trade and kind of coming out with a wash in terms of numbers?
Say it again?
If you traded player X and only got 1 pick back, odds are you'd be using one of your picks to replace player X, and you wouldn't be coming out ahead numerically. You feel like if you traded player X, you'd want to be getting 2 picks back in a deal most likely?
It depends. Depends on the player, I guess. And we really haven't gone through that and thought about that right now. But I guess it depends on the value of the player and what you have. What you have is the value for the player and what you want back for that player as well. So it really just depends on who the player would be.
How much, Mike, do you feel like what you guys were able to do in free agency helped give you some flexibility here in the draft, or how much did free agency maybe dictate what you'll do here?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're going through these, the free agent process and the draft, you're trying to, fill holes and needs in the roster. So, I think where we started out, and I think we prioritized the offensive line, and adding Dan and Kevin there, and then like I said, we want to work on both sides of the ball, offense and defensive side of the line of scrimmage, and then getting Draymond in there as another rusher in there, has some versatility. We added some, a linebacker, back end player. So I think it does give you a little flexibility as you head into the draft on just how many holes you really have to fill.
We've talked at length about quarterback and receiver and edge because those are the obvious needs. When you look at your roster, what position aren't we talking about?
Well, like I said, we have a lot of needs on the roster right now, and I think that does a disservice right now. There's 31 other teams in the league right now trying to figure out other teams' needs. We just met with our pro department the other day to go over team needs, and during the draft, we have up a team needs thing. As we go through the draft, that's part of the strategy. So I think at this point of the draft, it would do us a disservice really to identify the exact needs that we have on the roster.
How important do you think, like for you, Mike, having been in Kansas City, Andy Reid's been there forever. Mm-hmm. How important is that stability to being able to develop a quarterback and set him up for success?
I think it's very important. Just having that environment and stability around him. Coaches, front office, I've seen it done before. So I think that's a vital process. A part of the process is to have, that environment and stability for that player. I saw it, with Andy, with Patrick, and saw how that worked. And same thing with Brian, with Joe. So I think that's a big part of it.
How critical will it be for you guys together to be able to have that if you were to select a quarterback first?
Yeah, no, I think that's very important. And, and having a plan for the quarterback as well, as we've discussed, amongst Brian and Chad, and what is the plan for the quarterback, and having stability there and creating an environment for that player to succeed is all part of it. Sometimes you have to help these players along, and that's what coaching's here for, and that's what, front office is here for, to provide an environment for them to succeed.
Where does Levis stand in that?
Yeah, Will is, a quarterback, in our room, and, he's still developing. He's a young quarterback. He's had some good moments, and like any other young quarterback, they're continuing to develop.
Right. When you've got a quarterback who makes plays off script, a lot of different arm angles, is it a tricky balance to figure out what you might need to coach and what you might not?
That's a tricky question. I think there's definitely the element of, guys have unique traits, and you try your best to not interfere with those. I don't want to do something that's going to take away what makes a player great, what their edge is. There's also a way that you have to play the position a lot, not all the time, but a lot of the time in the NFL that does lead to success. There's an efficiency part of it that matters, but when it's time to put the cape on and go be Superman, you see the guys around the league that all do it, and there's a lot of them that can make those big plays and big moments, and you want the quarterback to feel comfortable when it's time to make those types of plays or take those types of risks or make a tight window throw, that they have the green light and the confidence from us that it's okay to do it. And that's all a part of the development. And there's things that they'll make some bad decisions as a young player, and you got to correct them. And then they're going to make plays that are remarkable, and we're all going to be excited about watching it. I know there was definitely moments for me as you watch quarterbacks around the league, and you just know that the coach is over there on the sideline going, like, throw it away, throw it away, throw it away, and all of a sudden they make an unbelievable play. And that's what makes the players in this league, and you don't want to take that away from them. But there's a balance between teaching the situation in a moment, and when is probably the right time for it, and when maybe we can throw the ball away or check the ball down. So it's a balance, certainly, and guys earn the right to do that and earn the trust to do that when they make those decisions and make the plays when those things matter. To me, it's over time you earn the right to do that, and Sometimes it's terrifying as a coach, and that's more of a me problem than it is a them problem. So there is a balance though, and there's a line that which you got to be mindful of, but you certainly don't want to take what's special about a player away from them.
There's been a lot of talk through this process about where this group of quarterbacks ranks, maybe compared to other years. Do you see a Superman that you talk about in this group?
Yeah, I think there's some interesting players in the class from top to bottom, truthfully. But yeah, I think there's some guys that have shown over their college careers that they can do a lot of really special things. And I think, it's your guys' job to talk about classes and comparisons and all those things. And we look at what's right in front of us for the year and for that class. And I think we feel like it probably isn't as bad of a class as it's getting made out to be from top to bottom. I think some of these guys will end up being pretty solid players, and I think a few of them can end up being really good. So I feel confident in our evaluation of it.
Along with that evaluation for all you guys, you talked about the touch points in this process. It's well documented. You've basically seen Cam at every touch point could have. You canceled the last workout with Shador. Is that about finding every little thing out about a guy, or is it more about maybe confirming what you already think you know?
Well, yeah, no, I think it's about finding out every little thing that you can find out. And at certain times in the process where we figured out, whether it's a physical ability that you evaluate on tape, or it's something with the intangibles in the person. And once you spend enough time with a player, you kind of figure out, okay, we've come to this decision. So for us, we took every, they call them touch points along the way. And, not only you watch them, throw live at some points, you're also sitting down with them and going through, X's and O's and figuring out the intelligence piece. But I think that's why we go through the whole thing. But there at some point we're like, okay, we've answered the questions here.
You said you know what you're doing with number one and you're not dealing. So with regard to phone calls from other teams, would you say don't bother?
Yes, at this point, yes.
Did you guys use all 30 of your 30 visits, and what was maybe the philosophy and how you wanted to use those, what you wanted to find out? Some of it medical, some personality, some digging deeper on guys. How did you maybe attack those 30 visits?
Yeah, it depends on each player. Like you said, some of it's medical stuff, some of it's X's and O's on the board. So every player that we bring in is really for a reason, to try to get questions answered. So as we went through that, bringing in those 30 players and identifying those people that we wanted in there, I think we had just questions, to get answered. And that's part of it. When you bring them in the building, they have an opportunity to really meet with everybody in the building.
When it comes to visits, I guess judging from the reported visit, looks like you had a lot of interest in D linemen. You guys have Simmons and Sweat and Sebastian in there. Do you still feel like that's a significant priority to add to the roster?
Well, I think we need to add depth across the whole entire roster. It just happened to be that position group that we brought some players in that maybe we had some more questions on as we went through the process, but it certainly wasn't we were targeting a certain position. It was just identifying players on the board that we needed to spend more time with, really.
How difficult to find inline tight end that can do everything you'd like out of a lead tight end?
Yeah, I think as the game has evolved, there's less really true wide tight ends, blockers, and the guys who can do both combo guys is unique at this time. But there's certainly guys out there that can still do it. Like I said, as the game's evolved, some of these tight ends have really turned into big receivers in the slot at times. So to find a tight end that can actually, line up, block in line, and do something in the pass game, it's probably a little bit less than it was years before.
Brian, give me your background working with quarterbacks. If you guys do take a quarterback, is there added pressure or responsibility that you feel to develop and make sure this thing goes right, and why or why not?
Oh, no added pressure. I think the old adage is, pressure is a bit of a privilege. You get a chance to work with a great player when you pick him at the top of the draft. So happens to be a quarterback, and that doesn't change anything for me. How I go about my job, what I do on a day-to-day basis, what I believe about the development of the position. None of that changes. It's exciting. It's what you hope for. I mean, it's what you want as a coach. Is you want those types of players on your roster. You want to coach them. You want to be a part of that journey. I've been fortunate to be a part of a few of them. it's exciting, and so there's nothing added to what already is the job. That's just part of it, and I'm fully aware of the expectation that comes along with that, and I embrace it. I'm excited for that to happen.
Sorry about that.
Go ahead.
I didn't know if you caught Cam's Fortnite appearance and everything he had to say about the football team.
No.
Your favorite coach, Tony and Tajir, two of the top 5 running backs in the league, and Calvin's premier wide receiver.
Yeah, I think you got to learn something about Cam. Cam's a smart person. I think he knows. I think he's got an awareness of his audience. Sounds like.
Chad, you talked a little bit about Dave and Reggie earlier. How did you use their strengths maybe in this process and divvy up maybe their responsibilities?
Yeah, I thought it was important when we were building the staff back in January when Mike and I got together, obviously hiring Mike, and then looking at how we're going to build the front office. It was important to get some people in there with real experience that's been in this league for a long time that come from, we're trained the way both Mike and I were trained as we come through this. So Reggie and I worked together in Green Bay. He's been in a position before as a general manager going into a really tough situation out in Oakland at the time. He had a top 5 pick. He took, I think, Khalil Mack, 5th overall at the time. Dave Ziegler is a good friend of Mike's. I've known Dave for a long time. He did a lot of good things there in New England when he was there. He's been a general manager before. He's picked in the top 10 before. Just being able to have some guys in the room, and even Dave. Dave didn't grow up in our system or our process, so it's actually kind of good because he's bringing some good ideas to what we're doing. Because a lot of times Mike and I kind of see things very similar. And even Reggie for that matter, but Dave will come with a different perspective, and it causes us all to discuss it, go through it, watch it again, which has been really helpful to us. So having that type of experience in the room has been invaluable to us.
Chad, I'm curious, where are you guys at with the L'Jarius Sneed situation? I mean, you were here, so I would imagine it's something that you knew about back in December.
Well, we put a statement out on that. I don't think there's anything that I can add at this point regarding L'Jarius to what you're referring to.
Mike, when it comes to the draft process and maybe a player who has some character issues from the college time, what's your philosophy in how you look at those guys and how you evaluate if they would still be a fit in this organization?
Well, I think the biggest thing you have to really determine is, have they learned from their mistakes? I think these guys are all the young players, and we've all made certain mistakes in our lives. But really to try to, figure out, have they really learned from their prior mistakes, and are they a good person? Are they going to be good in the community? So, there are players that do have some past issues that you really have to work through. And like I said, you just have to figure out, have they really learned from those mistakes?
Last question.
When you bring in a quarterback, a young quarterback, how much in the draft thinking is there an idea? You've obviously done it on the offensive line with the veterans. How much in the draft thinking is there, we need to surround him or give him better people on this side of the ball to accelerate his growth? And will that be something that you guys are thinking about with the other pick?
Yeah, like I said, you want to surround the young quarterback with as much talent and have the environment for him to succeed. But at the same time, we're building a team here too as well. So we have to do what's best for the team at that point. Of course, we'd like to go out and give that player everything he needs. But our thinking is right now there's a lot of holes in this roster, and we have to make the best decision for the team in terms of value of that player.
Chad, you've talked about the evaluation sort of model shifting for the organization, getting everybody on this new model, scouts, etc. What are you hoping that this new evaluation process will bring to the Titans on draft night that wasn't here before, and how you look at players?
Yeah, I think we're going into the draft this weekend, just trying to find really good football players. We need more of them, and we're excited to head into this and see what falls in our laps here and go from there. I mean, we just want high character guys, locker room guys, culture guys. Obviously, Mike and I come from, and even Brian, more of a trait based system. We want height, weight, speed. We want physicality. We want toughness. We want smarts. We want instincts. We want it all. I think this process that we've gone through is rigorous. It's detailed. No stone has been left unturned. Doesn't mean we're going to be perfect. Doesn't mean we're going to get them all right. But like I was told a long time ago, you're not going to get all of them right, but just get the ones right that walk in through your doors on Sunday. So that's our goal, is try to hit on every single one of them. We're excited about where we're at. We're well prepared. We're ready to go, and I'm excited about the process that we've been through so far.
Thank you.
Thanks,
guys.
On 105 The Zone, powered by all four seasons garage doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. The press conference has concluded. The only real interesting thing that you guys may have missed is that I don't know who asked the question, but someone asked a question talking about, players who may have, we've never really landed on a good term for it, but non-football concerns, I guess, is what you would call it. Players with that, and Mike Bergonzi, Titans general manager Mike Bergonzi, gotta keep him. You gotta be on there. This is a good press conference time to use it. He said that, hey, we understand that players are young, and we want to know, have they learned from their prior mistakes? And what have they learned? Have they learned a valuable lesson? That's something that I thought was very interesting, but that's really the only question that you guys may have missed that was of importance after that.
Yeah, I really like the value of how they're looking at certain prospects because they all remember when we were young and everybody else was, made silly mistakes. Now, if it's not a silly mistake or a knucklehead mistake or something down that line, and it's a serious mistake, they probably not somebody they brought in.
Right.
So got to understand certain things. There's a line I wish they kind of would have, got in a little more detail what becomes not, non-negotiable, and we're not bringing them in. But I don't think they brought anybody like that. There's a lot of questions with this draft, actually, though, with all guys now having some form of something. It's really uncanny. I was learning a lot of
Seems like
about
more
different
and more every
prospects.
year,
Yeah,
right?
whether it's a lot of hearsay, kind of like Pierce,
Yeah.
to something in depth that is serious with arrest and things
Like
of that
Isaiah
nature.
Bond.
Right, so it's just like, oh man, so that may be a no go for the Titans organization with things of arrest and certain things. So the only thing that wasn't answered there, nobody asked about Snead. I know it's kind of about the draft. Outside of that, I thought hearing him say we'll take the best player available and not necessarily a need, but he kind of hinted that hopefully that matches up in the same.
And I thought that was very interesting. I don't know if everybody really picked up on what he was trying to clarify, but we'll talk about that when we come back. We had just a short segment. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Struggling with joint pain, suffering from a recent injury, looking to recover faster after surgery? Well, at Edge, we've got you covered. From powerful peptide stack like BPC 157 or TB 500 to PRP treatments, stem cell therapy, and high film muscle stimulation, Edge Peptide is your go-to solution for faster healing and recovery. And as an athlete myself, I know how frustrating pain and injuries can be. That's why now is the perfect time to take control of your wellness and finally address those nagging issues. Whether it's golf, tennis, or any activity you love, don't let pain hold you back any longer. And Edge specializes in regenerative treatments designed to reduce inflammation, promote tissue repair, and improve mobility, helping your body heal naturally while avoiding surgery whenever possible. And right now, we're offering a free $250 consultation with your initial treatment. And all you have to do is just go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can give them a call today at 615, of course, 724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. I was just joking with Blaine. Got the pronunciation list, the draft prospect pronunciation guide the Tennessee Titans put out. And I just noticed Emeka Ebuka, the G is silent.
Oh, my.
And then, JT Tuamaloa, which I know I just did not get his last name right.
Ohio State, right?
Yeah. His name is actually just JT. It's not initials. They don't stand for something like Justin Thomas.
Oh, right.
So when people say JTT shorthand, it's really just JT shorthand.
Oh, my.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, stuff like that would just mess me up on other people's names.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Maybe we'll do a pronunciation contest tomorrow. And see
Pronunciation bee.
Yeah, pronunciation bee with you.
No way. Oh, my God. I couldn't even do it. Be laughing at myself for just, oh, my gosh, what we going through my
Just
head.
flash. I'll just hold up a card and you have to say how you pronounce it.
Yeah. Now, I wanted to bring up, though, all seriousness aside, we didn't hear the Sneed part because we were on a commercial break, but I appreciate all the people in the chat there helping us out there, but it was kind of brief that I guess pretty much let the NFL handle what's going on with Sneed, and that was pretty much it, right? Yeah, that's what Jackson said. So appreciate all the people helping us.
Okay. Sorry.
What,
so
you looking at
I've been
another
calling
name?
him. Yeah, I've been calling him Kamir Dyke, the wide receiver out of Florida.
Stop dying.
It's Chimray. It's Chimray DK. Chimray DK. And I've been calling him, and I got both. That's 0 for 2. That's 0 for 2. All right, let's put that aside. Let's talk about.
I don't even know how you got from that to that right there. Didn't even know they spelled the same.
All right. I did. Someone said James Neeson in the F&M Bank chat, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live. Titans gave Zach the script, and I kind of was like, when I first got this, I had to go, well, they don't have every player's pronunciation listed. The Tennessee Titans only selected a few players listed. Are these the players that they're thinking about drafting? They're getting the media prepared.
Oh, there's only how many is it?
Less than 100.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know, but that's just something pretty interesting. Okay, I thought it was interesting, and it's something that we've kind of talked about over these last few weeks. We've talked a lot about best player available versus need, and my stance has always kind of been, well, I think that need is just inherently going to work its way into the board, like when they're building the board. And that seems to be what they've said. So PK at the beginning said, how much of your roster issues can be solved with only 8 picks? And Burgon said, as much as we can if they turn into more, if they turn into more picks, but we have a lot of needs and going to do their best to stay true to their board. Draft best player available. Not reaching for needs at this point. This is a tone setter draft. And then later on, he said, when talking about that again, he talked about how are you not directed by, PK asked, how are you not directed by need? And he goes, you try to marry it up to the board, and he's referring to when they're initially building it. So they've already kind of factored in need, but I think what they're saying is, I think inherently teams build their board based on need too, but I do think that there's an limit to how much they're going to reach, because he talked about looking at it horizontally, and that's when the pods come into play. Maybe we'll get more details from Coach Mack, kind of pose that question to him. But it sounds like to me that if defensive line is the best player available, which in this draft it very well could, they still view that as filling roster depth because you are built through the trenches and they need roster depth across the thing. And you never know what's going to happen injury-wise. So there is a good chance that maybe wide receiver is not the pick at 35 or edge is not the pick at 35 if a certain quality a player falls.
I like this by Nick on the chat, Nick Ewing. He said, I would prefer best player available at a high priority position of need.
Yeah, and that may be kind of how it works out. I think the draft is kind of going to fall, because they have so many holes, in their favor, where there's not going to be where we're questioning whether a pick made sense or not.
Right.
Unless they could just go crazy at some point. But I just don't get this.
So
sense
they
that they're
go
gonna
running back with the second pick
Yeah.
at 35.
Unless it's like
I just said that could
unless it's
happen.
like Hampton,
Right,
that,
that's
you
what
know,
I
if
said.
it's Hampton, you know, I would have a hard time coming on this show and railing them for it.
So, okay, how do you explain that to the owner? We signed Pollard. He got 1,000 yards, and we're paying him whatever number, $7 million, and we draft a running back pretty much first round.
I would say with this owner, there's a recent example. Tennessee Titans just traded for DeMarco Murray, who was a 1,000-yard rusher, traded away a 4th-round pick, and they turned around and used a 2nd-round pick on Derrick Henry, who got 2,000 yards for your franchise.
Yeah, what you don't know behind the scenes, they were trying to trade Derrick Henry the whole time.
But just recently. But that's what I would say, because Derrick Henry gave you some of the best years of any Tennessee Titans players. So I would say, hey, Hampton fell.
Well, what I would
the issue is, though, that in that particular draft, and I don't know if Amy would come up with this counter argument, is that, well, you had 3 second-round picks, so that's a little bit different.
But I will also say, what is the offensive philosophy? I get if you're a running team, you go after the running back, but if you're trying to be a balanced attack and maybe lean, depending on each game, you know, what you'd like to do, is that a high priority, or he was just that high of a grade that you just couldn't pass him up? I just like
Probably the
explanation.
latter, I would say.
Yeah.
And I would say that this would be a pick where you probably have to pivot your philosophy for a year.
Yeah, just watching today, actually, against Appalachian State.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why you were looking at that Appalachian State game. Well, maybe we'll talk about that later.
Somebody named Joey?
Yeah, but I do think that when you kind of look at it, is Hampton is a good enough player where maybe it's okay to pivot. Like if there's only one running back goes in the first round of the draft and Hampton is a clear best player available, he's an offensive weapon. Running backs can be playmakers, right? We've seen it here firsthand. And listen, maybe the best way to integrate Cam Ward into the offense, here's me playing devil's advocate.
Have a running game.
Is to have the running game and the offensive line and keep the ball out of Cam Ward's, put Cam Ward in less precarious situations that he may not be ready for and ease him in. And then he starts taking over towards the end of the year and there's a nice transition. But then you have Cam Ward, you have your Steve McNair and your Eddie George. That'd be another way I'd sell it for a couple of, for a good decade.
The only issue I have with that is this defense good enough to help the offense catch up?
Yeah.
And to carry the team to a certain extent. So that's always a battle. And this team is, has so many holes on both sides. It's, it's kind of rare that we're ever been in this spot, but we shall see. There was parts of times, though, I didn't know if he was, the way they asked questions, like they are taking a Cam, but are they taking Cam?
I think there was a point.
They just didn't want to say it outright.
Yeah, someone pointed out that Brian Callahan started getting a little with the pressure question. Do you have any extra pressure? And then he started getting a little. He said, "I'm really excited to work with a quarterback or something." And like Chad Brinker shot him daggers. So like I don't understand the reason behind it right now. When we're 2 days out of the draft, you already said that you're not going. That don't bother. Don't bother calling us on a trade. Yeah, no, that's what he said on the press conference. I mean, I think he said it on what you're talking about too. So if we're already at don't bother, just come out and say it. I mean, that now makes me feel like, okay, maybe this is NFL mystique saying the NFL owners don't want, or the NFL doesn't want you to say it.
Man, you don't get to this level of billionaires being just a ding dong. They're pretty smart, strategic, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Well, I will say this: when we come back, because you bring up the running backs, and that was about the extent of what I thought was most interesting about that. But I kind of want to go in and talk about ranking the positions by need in this draft. And then, of course, we'll be joined by Coach Mack as well. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
There are a lot of diagnoses out there, and there's a pill for everything. But not all diagnoses are accurate, and not all pills are good for you. Hey, it's Blaine Bishop. And when you got a diagnosis for European Auto Repair, get a second opinion before you make a major decision. And Eurofix is the home for second opinions. And before you spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on European vehicle repair from a diagnosis, go to Eurofix. It could not only save your vehicle's life, but could actually save you from a lot of stress that can ruin your freaking weekend. And life's too short to get stressed out and angry. So be happy and go to Eurofix. And at Eurofix, you also get a free 15-minute no-wrench inspection with an estimate at every visit, and not high-pressure sale tactics. And a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. And at Eurofix, you never pay dealer pricey because they're family-owned for 26 years, located in Franklin, Hundred Oaks, Murfreesboro, Belmead, and now Mount Juliet. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. Those dumb blames are there.
It is 2:01. Good afternoon from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Jackson Williams. Several teams around the NFL are back in the building today, including the Titans, whose brass met with the media earlier before the NFL draft, where Mike Borgonzi had this to say about any trade rumors surrounding the number 1 overall pick.
No, we've come to a consensus. The entire organization is to stay at that pick, and I guess you'll find out Thursday night who we pick. No.
In other NFL news, 49ers quarterback Brock Purdy has arrived with his team for voluntary offseason conditioning, per Ian Rappaport, as the two sides are having continued conversations about an extension. Although one of his favorite pass catchers, star tight end George Kittle, won't be in attendance as he and the team aren't close on a contract extension. Tennessee baseball looking for a bounce back tonight as they host Lipscomb at Lindsey Nelson Stadium tonight. First pitch at 5 p.m. For your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, you need to visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Doors. 615-737-1045 is the number. Seth McLaughlin, really pronounced Seth McLaughlin.
Huh?
Yep. Not McLaughlin, it's McLaughlin.
Stop this.
Francisco Malagoa is with a G is in there, okay?
Malagoa.
Okay. It's actually Maui Noah. The G is silent. You know what else is silent?
Oh, my.
In Purdue, offensive tackle Marcus Mbow, M-B-O-W, the M silent. So he's just Marcus Bow. Why even have the M?
It would make me go back to think, do I know our language?
Yeah.
Do I know how to pronounce letters?
Yeah. I mean, this is insane. This is insane.
There was already questions on that anyway.
Yeah.
But
All right. So I thought it was interesting. Trevor Sycamore's been on PFF. He's been on the radio, all the radio shows, radio stations. He actually did something pretty unique in the draft world. He did a top 100 big board for every 32 teams.
Ooh.
That is insane.
No, that's exhausting.
That is exhausting. And I just do one for the Tennessee Titans, and that's exhausting. What's interesting is that he kind of puts in here some notes, and this is going to go into our team needs and priorities. But he put like the offensive coordinators, Brian Callahan. The quarterback alignment is 68.6% of the time in shotgun. They don't really use heavy play action. They were 24th in play action. Their run concept is more man than zone. 48% man, 32.48 in zone. And it's really interesting. He does the same thing for defense. But this is what he put as the primary needs for quarterback or for the Tennessee Titans. Quarterback, X wide receiver, and a 3-4 edge rusher. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And so then he does secondary and ancillary. We know, obviously, until you have a quarterback, you don't have a quarterback. So let's remove quarterback out of it, Blaine. What is the biggest need for this team, in your opinion?
To help.
Huh?
Ridley.
Yeah.
No, the quarterback, whoever becomes the quarterback, could make me say that now because Cam Ward, I think I would go, outside the quarterback, you got to go wide receiver and then edge, especially with the history there with the edge in the second round, unless someone falls that you think should have been a first rounder. So
let me ask you a question, because he puts X wide receiver as the primary and then slot wide receiver as a secondary, but the top of the secondary issue, so issue number 4 or need number 4. How much do you differentiate between the two? Or you just because like me, I'm just like, draft the best wide receiver on the board. I don't care what position he plays.
I'm definitely in your alignment.
Okay.
I would say this, and I'm real big on this. Now, you probably heard me say this before. That's why I like Higgins so much, because you see a big, tall target playing the slot at Iowa State.
A big, tall target's a big, tall target.
That he can get down, he can get down and run routes like a short guy, a gadget guy. And so I just want all my players to be universal. Now, you always want them to be different, too. When I say different, I mean you want maybe a short guy, you want a 6-foot guy, maybe you have a tall guy, but you want them to be where you can't account for where they actually may line up on any given formation. Because I say that being a defensive guy, I used all those things for tips. Because if you always line up outside, I know what they're going to, I'm going to have, a handful of plays that I think that you're going to run based off of formation recognition. Now, there's not a lot of players that can do that, but there are some players that as soon as they line up, they know based off of because you have certain players that play certain positions. And that's why I like them to be universal, but I want them to be different in height and what they bring to the table. And they can have a main position, but I want to be able to put the 5'11" guy, I want to be able to put him outside off the ball and bring my slot guy, which is what really was when he became effective. They moved him all over the place when you start and that's what you want because then you can keen in on just one guy. Like, if you have multiple guys like that. Now, you just want them to have different skill sets, though.
Right.
So, I would say I would still take the best, wide receiver and not be restricted to X, Y, or Z unless you just have a glaring need that you don't have this gadget guy and we need somebody that's, kind of jitterbuggy guy. We got a tall guy. We got a guy who can move around. So it depends on what's your flavor and like what you like. To me, I kind of like Higgins. I've been saying this for a while.
Yeah.
Once I watched him, I was like, well, I had never even heard of him.
Well, I know this from the short time I've done this show with you. Because I remember when the first discussions we had was how you were making fun of everybody for making fun of you for liking Sam Darnold and you're ahead of the curve. And so I know this. When you're hot on a player like you are with Higgins, I'm taking notice.
I feel like I would take him over the guy in Arizona.
Yeah.
Now, that other Arizona guy may have a little more upside, but what really makes you a good receiver, this is why I liked who's the guy we trade? Hopkins, is because his game wasn't built on speed and athleticism. His game was built on route running. And this is what Higgins is, and that makes it in the league. And when I see the kid, what's his last name? The Arizona kid.
So it's Tet Aroa McMillan.
Yeah, exactly.
McMillan pronounced correctly.
And I don't see a lot. Now, he can learn this along the way, but I don't see a lot in his route tree. And he doesn't look explosive. Like, he looks like he's a guy that's 6'4", and he just outjumps some guys. He does look good on run after catch, but when you see that, it's almost like they let him go free. No one challenged him at the line very often at night. And I just don't think that's going to happen in the league. So I think he's going to have some form of development. There's some upside there. I just thought Higgins was already there. I could see it. And so that's why I like him. Not to say he's going to be a better player, but I think maybe initially he would be.
Now, you got wide receiver as a priority over edge. I got two questions for you. How much of a gap is there between the two in your mind? But also,
depends on the players.
Yeah, are you just more comfortable with the edge rotation that they currently have more so than the wide receiver rotation? Because the wide receiver rotation may be pretty non-existent.
Well, this is all based off of who's there.
Gotcha.
Watch this. If it's Higgins and it's Pierce, I'm taking Pierce.
There you go.
See, it's just he is much more dynamic in what I think he could accomplish in this league, and his upside is just out
and something we didn't talk about yesterday when we had a little love fest for everybody that says that I hate University of Tennessee. Had a big love fest. One thing, this is something that Jackson brought up. The one thing we didn't really hit on is how underrated he is against the run.
Yeah. Well, I said that's the only weakness you could see is that sometimes he was a little soft on the run game, especially when it was tight end, tackle, double down. And that's what I brought in. That's what Javon Curse was. He was getting meleeed in preseason over that. And each game in preseason, he got better and better because he wasn't used to going against that kind of heavy weight going against him. So finally, come first game, he started doing it. He figured it out. But it took him a minute. It was all a shocker to us because we were like, oh, man, I don't know if he's going to be able to withstand the run game. May have to just put him in on passing plays. So once you figure it out, these elite level athletes like that, then that's why I was comparing them. So it will be interesting. It's always about the players. And I think he's a higher grade than Higgins.
Okay, so wide receiver, edge, what's next on your list in terms of priority?
Like this. I then went back to wide receiver.
So you kind of not necessarily looking for a specific wide receiver, but you're saying, hey, in this draft they need to walk away with 2 wide receivers.
They have to walk away with 2 wide receivers, and I'm doing it there because I think that may be the 4th round pick. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
It just the way the board is set up now with their draft picks, and I want to get at a high level one because that means that guy probably could have been in the 3rd round, and he could be an immediate impact, even if it's just 500 yards or whatever. I think you can get a quality starting player right there.
So depending on who it is, 2nd round, where let's say we have no 3rd round. 2nd round, we're saying the best of a wide receiver edge.
Yep.
And then whichever one you don't get, you're getting in the 4th round, even if that means you're taking 2 wide receivers in the 4th round.
Yeah.
Because you got an edge in the 2nd.
No, I'm not going to take 2 wide receivers in the 4th. I will take.
Gotcha. I get what you're
wide
saying.
receiver, yeah.
Okay. So what comes next? Are you going to go circle back to edge? Because I could see them taking 2 edges and 2 wide receivers at some time in this draft.
So I make quarterback naturally, then wide receiver, edge, and then wide receiver. Then I'm going cornerback.
Okay. So not safety.
No.
Not linebacker, but cornerback.
Yeah,
so why corner?
Well, I think corner is a harder find, and I think if they can come away with another Bronley-type player, a guy who's nasty, aggressive, and don't take no crap, we can teach you the rest and can run and, display that he's, a cornerback that could, that they can be coached up technically wise and teach them to be patient. I think they have to go for that. And the reason why I'm going cornerback is because I don't know the situation with Snead. I don't even know how the NFL views the Snead whole situation.
And of course, it's never going to come. That answer is never going to come at a convenient time for the team. Not
and
just
then,
for the
then
Titans.
I'm not even sure with his knee. And then,
Right.
by the way, you got to start building when McCrary is out. Like, this is his last year of his deal. So I'm assuming he'll be there. He may not, but I'm assuming he'll be there. And then you have to start preparing for the future at the same time. Reason why I have safety and, position I play and linebacker last is because you can get guys on the street, veteran guys to fill in who will be special team players till you kind of fill in the gaps, them and linebacker along the way. You've done a little bit of that with what's the kid they got from the Broncos?
Oh,
Barton. Yeah. So Cody Barton.
we both blinked on that one.
So I thought, okay, we can work with what we have. Some young guys. I saw Gray in the field too, but with Appalachian State versus.
So that's really for you more so
position.
But you got a little bit of flexibility at those positions, and you could probably find a undrafted free agent or another veteran. If you shouldn't be spending draft capital on these because you could probably get one somewhere else.
Now I will say this: if I see a running back that I really like, and he's down in the 6th round, and I'm going, ooh,
yeah,
or
you don't have a 7th round pick.
Yeah, I may go down that road. Now, pick safety, I'm hoping that Malachi Moore is there because I like him, and I think he's just a solid player. He'll be a good player, kind of like Hooker, but with nastiness. And don't take no crap. And I think that's what this defense, and I think that's what they're looking for. Smart, educated football players that play with an edge, especially on defense. You got to have that.
Got it. Well, when we come back, we'll be joined by Coach Mack and of Titans Radio, get his last-minute thoughts on draft strategy in the Titans draft. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
What's your order? Hey, folks, I've been talking about Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance for years because they're the leading experts in sports medicine and performance and the team physician for the NFL, college, and high school athletics across Tennessee. And TOA provides sports medicine coverage to more high school and college sports teams than in any orthopedic group in the state of Tennessee. They have 29 locations throughout the state and over 100 physicians throughout Middle and East Tennessee to take care of all your musculoskeletal needs. And TOA has 11 urgent care locations with walk-in availability 7 days a week. They offer direct access to sports medicine and performance, physical therapy and nutrition, personalized rehabilitation plans to enhance mobility, reduce pain, and improve overall physical function for patients recovering from injuries or surgeries. And TOA also offers sports performance training, a specialized program designed to enhance athletic performance and provide tailored training solutions for athletes at all levels. So please check out their services at TOA.com. Yes, that's TOA.com.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, 615-737-1045. And we're going to go straight to the phone lines. And I will say this. I think we need to start filtering in the Bert version of this song where he sings this song. Have you all heard that? Bert sings this song. I think we need to filter that in for some. Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. Coach Mack, do you approve of the Bert version of the song?
Hey, Zach. Hey, Blaine. Look, anything that Bert does, I'm okay with. Just everybody understand it's always going to be a little bit off the chain.
Speaking of off the chain, Rhett Bryan gave me the pronunciation, the draft prospect pronunciation guide by the Tennessee Titans today. These are some names that I have gotten wrong for at least a year and a half. What's the one that surprised you the most, if you can recall?
Well, look, I've got the advantage of having Rhett with me all the time when we're going over these players. I mean, we just got our board put together, and he is the pronunciation expert. So, I mean, there's a lot of them that I would have mispronounced if I didn't have Rhett right there early on in the process to help me out. And that's a big help too on for everything that we put together for the draft. But that's one of the things that's extremely important, because there are some unusual names. You know that.
Oh, man, for sure. I was making fun of myself for some of these ones that I clearly got wrong. Coach, we just got done hearing the Titans, three guys in power, talk about the draft. You know, Mike Berganzi, Chad Brinker, and Brian Callahan. And one of the things they talked about was basically best player available versus need. And it kind of sounded like, and maybe I'm wrong in my assessment, but does need, when you're building the board, does need kind of naturally filter into your player placement, or is it always just, straight up tape and all that kind of stuff?
Well, it's always straight up tape, but it absolutely figures in to need. Need figures in some, because, you don't want an imbalance on your roster. Now, the slots that the Titans have to fill, you guys know this. They know this too. You're not going to fill all of them with 8 picks in the draft. You very seldom, when you're trying to rebuild a roster, are able to fill it all in the draft. But they've filled some with some free agency signings. There'll be some more that they'll be able to pair into it. But when you start to take your draft picks, you want the best players. You want the best players, but your need does figure into it some. And where your need really figures into it, guys, not only in the draft, depending on how many picks you have. I think the most picks anybody has this year is 11. So with 8 picks, it's going to be a really big important task when you get to the free agency part of it, with the draft free agents that you're going to sign after the draft to fill out a 90-person roster, that you really focus in on your needs then. So they're both synonymous, but when you're drafting, you're wanting to draft talent, because you're going to need some of these guys that you draft in this draft early on to be able to come in and contribute pretty quickly.
Everyone talks about trade back, and I get it. I mean, this team wants more draft picks. I think every team wants more draft picks because they're all darts to throw in this thing that we call the draft. But what about a trade up? How high does the player need to be on your board for you to start calling some teams ahead of you, trying to figure out how to trade up and get that guy?
Yeah, if you're talking about just as every round, I mean, that's something that I did for 31 years. Was work the phones, and you're always working the phones. If you're the phone person or persons in the draft room when you're calling around the league to people, you don't want to get extravagant as far as jumping a whole lot of people. But once you get into the draft, if there's really somebody that you've got targeted in the belly of the draft, and you really feel like that you've got to have that person, and the gap between that person and the next one that would be available to you position-wise and ability-wise is pretty wide, then you start to call in. But the thing about it is a huge jump. Those huge jumps, those things are normally done very, very early. Now, there haven't been any draft trades, to my knowledge. You guys might know but to this point, of any significance right now leading up to this draft, which is getting ready to happen Thursday. But during the draft, that's a different story.
We're on with Coach Mack of Titans Radio. You can listen to him this Thursday and Friday right here on 105 The Zone doing the Titans Radio draft coverage.
Well, Coach Mack, man, there's so many new tools, man. Zach, it's coming up with all these different tools that people are using these days to evaluate players. And I was wondering if that just made it easier or harder, or the same to evaluate talent of these players.
Yeah, the more information you can have, and the more, as you say, and you described it very well, Blaine. There are more tools, and there's more ways to get more information quickly now. Much more, and again, you can start breaking subsets of a player down to the minute thing that you want to watch. I mean, you can watch all of his down and distance. You can watch, say you talk about a receiver, you can watch all of his catches at down and distance. You can watch all of his targets, pertaining to coverage. All of those things now that you can get immediately, and people can put together for you, so that as a coach, you're not watching the whole game like we used to have to do to find those things and pull them out, cut them up, those types of scenarios. There is so much more available, and it's a plus. It's a huge, huge plus that you use. Now, all the analytics and all the numbers, you've got to be able to use the ones that are relevant. You've got to be able, and plus you've got to have a foundation in those types of things, and you can't just pull numbers out of the air and think numbers are going to be the whole answer, because still, being able to watch the player, perform whichever task he's got to perform positionally, film evaluation is extremely important. But the tools that you have now to be able to break that evaluation down into, as I said, different subsets that can pinpoint areas that you want to look at, it's a huge help.
Well, I want to ask you about two pass rushers and two different guys and two different issues really with them. I learned this as I was doing my research, and that is the kid from Arkansas who I like a lot, the 6'6", 65 guy, but he had 2 ACL surgeries. So how much does that impact his physical and how that looks when you're evaluating him and you're looking to take a pass rusher?
You're talking about Landon Jackson, correct?
Yes, correct. I'm sorry. I'm from Arkansas.
Yeah, well, yes, it does, Blaine. It figures in. It figures in quite a bit, because when you draft somebody, I mean, you're making hopefully a 4-year commitment to them at least, that you're going to get good production out of. So you've got to be very, very astute and up on what their medicals are. I mean, it's extremely, extremely important. It figures into it. And that is something that, a lot of experience comes into it, not only with the medical people that you trust, but also into your history with people that they're able to look at. The other thing that's different now too, all the years that I've been doing this, the impact of those types of things, the impact on a draft placement for those players with those injuries, it has changed because the modern medicine is so much better. I mean, it used to be if you had an ACL and they had to open you up with a zipper that looked like Frankenstein on your knee and then close it up and then put you in a cast for 6 or 7 months, and then the atrophy was so bad it took you forever just to get any muscle mass back. It's different now. I mean, the advancements now, I mean, the recovery is so much better. So it has changed throughout the years, just as the medical technology has changed, but you still have got to be able to trust not only your experience, but also you've got to be able to trust whoever the people are that you're getting the information from as far as the medical is concerned. I mean, it's extremely important.
And this other kid is from Michigan, Josiah Stewart, and he had no medicals, but it was he was only 6 feet, and I was stunned because his bull and chop and swipe and spin were incredible. And I'm like, man, what were your evaluations of him when you watched him? And he wore number 0, I think. So that means he thought he was.
Yeah, well, the thing about him is you're right. The length as far as height wise is not there. He's got decent arm length. A guy like that, what you would do, in my humble opinion, with a guy like that, you'd be thinking of him to come in and be a depth rotational player to begin with, and then see. Now, look, there's been plenty of of shorter guys that have been able to rush off of the edge. And especially nowadays, the way that it's played, and very seldom, if you're going to take a guy like that, or you're going to stick him down into a 5 technique where he's going to have to fight, somebody from the outside and somebody from the inside. You can flip them to the open side. There's a lot of sub packages you can use guys with like that. I like the player because he's got production. He's got production, and you can't get completely scared away from him. But that's one of those guys that you have to have a pretty good idea of how he would fit into your roster and how you would want to use him situationally, at least for the beginning of his career, and then let him prove that he can be a guy that can stay on the field a little longer for you.
Naturally, this draft in 2025, it's its own animal, and every draft is so different on the strengths and weakness of this draft. In the first round, where do you see what group of players where it may be a run on a certain position group and kind of would change how you think about, hey, we may want to get our guy, not necessarily the Titans, but what I guess position group do you think is going to go on a run in the first round?
No, it'll be the edge rushers. I mean, I've got Josiah Stewart in the fourth pod, which I think is just about right for him. But you start talking about guys early on. The run will start. I mean, you got Abdul Carter, you got Jalen Walker. I'm just going off the top of my head. These guys I've been seeing their names in my sleep for 4 months. Yeah. Shamar Stewart, James Pierce Jr., Markel Williams, Mike Green, Donovan Ezaraku, JT Tuamolu. Those guys, once the run on those guys starts, it's probably going to be pretty quick.
Lastly, Michael, the Williams kid from Georgia, what do you think? Big, massive guy, man, but athletic, 6'5", kind of raw, but, man, you see the upside in him. What did you think of him?
So I like him. I mean, and you said raw as that. He's not a refined technician, but he's got raw physical power, and also a lot of times, especially from the edge, the way the game is played now, and you look for guys that might be able to slide back and forth too when you go to a sub package, but in today's RPO world, and as quick as the ball is coming out now, it's a lot different. You need to be able to have guys. You need some guys that are speed to power guys, because if a guy is just purely skimming the edge, you've got to be pretty special. And there's some guys in this draft that have got that motorcycle lean where they can cut off back to that launch point pretty quick on the edge. But these kind of guys you're talking about, Michael Williams, those thicker guys that you might be able to good speed to power, get a matchup inside that you can really help with, or find a matchup on the edge, especially in situational issues that can help you.
There you have it, Coach Mack, giving us the Mack attack.
Coach, how big of a role does special teams ability play into the board the further you get into the draft? Because obviously the Tennessee Titans have 2 5th-round picks, 2 6th-round picks, no 7th-round picks. Would you venture a guess to say that they are going to be weighing heavily special teams ability at that point?
Well, it's got to coincide with what their positional ability is too. I mean, it's extremely important. Now, the special teams roles have changed a lot. I mean, let's just talk about Blaine sitting there with you. When he came into the league, if you were on the kickoff team, I mean, you were to go down there and take off and fly after a 45 or 50-yard sprint into a 3-man wedge. Oh I mean, you know what I'm talking about, Blaine.
Yeah, man, my neck is hurting right now thinking about that.
Well, sure it is. I mean, so that part of it has changed. Now you're looking, for more space guys, and again, the ability now of punters when you're on the punt coverage team to be able to place the ball. Punters nowadays have many more clubs in their bag than it used to be. Is just bomb it as deep as you can. So there's a lot that goes in. There's more space stuff that goes into the special teams now than ever. More space. Being able to move in space is bigger than ever. I mean, I can remember the day when we'd have a couple of guys, and also this is true. When there was no free agency, I mean, my first job coaching linebackers when I was first in it, I had 2 guys on the active roster that's what they were. They were special teams guys and had been in the league for 4 or 5 years just because they could go down and break a wedge and do those types of things. That's changed now. but still, the special teams part of it is extremely important. What you would like to have is some guys that are going to be guys that are backups on your roster at those skill positions. And I say skill positions, everybody's got skill, but you'd like a receiver to be able to be physical enough, to be able to be a gunner. You'd like for the backup running back to be able to be either, an L4 or L5, on that kickoff return team. Those types of things, and you have to teach them because most of these guys don't have to do that in collegiate ball. Now, the ability to run down and to evade in space, you're always looking for that. But as I said, it has to fit in, but also those type of foot skills to their position.
So the Tennessee Titans' last pick is 188. There's going to be about 68 players drafted after that.
Ugh.
So my question becomes, because I remember a few years ago, Rand Carthon talked about the drafting of Colton Dow because they felt they couldn't get him in priority free agency, and they wanted to make sure they got Colton Dow on this team. And so without having a 7th-round pick, do you expect that you may have to take more of a risk in that 6th round and maybe technically reach for a player that you feel that can't make it to undrafted free agency? Or do you just play the game and just pray to the draft gods that those guys that you want to target come to you?
Well, and that's where your vertical and horizontal board come together, because as the board starts to thin out and you start to put guys up in the bullpen that you're talking about, you want to get guys of equal ability across the board, the way that you have them graded. And then, you've got to prioritize, and then hope, as you're right. And a lot of it is, praying to the draft gods, as you say, because sometimes you're holding your breath a little bit. But if you just really feel like a guy's not going to be there, depending on how the board is speaking to you when you're looking at it, and you're looking and see, the other thing is you've got people in that draft room that are telling you, look, this team's on the board, and this is what their roster looks like, and this is what they need. So they may be going after this. You can start to kind of look at and see who they might be going after. So you try to increase your odds by being able to, as you say, throw more darts at the board by putting up some more names across that bullpen.
Everyone says they want players that love football when it comes to the draft, and we've seen teams all over the NFL probably since the draft probably started, have a hard time. Some teams have a hard time finding that guy or finding that prospect, and they take a risk on a guy that maybe doesn't love football. How do you really determine that in the offseason? How much can you rely on the word of mouth of coaches and players and family members that all kind of have a stake of some sort in this kid's success at the next level?
You got to dig on the player himself. You got to do it face to face. I always, and it starts. It's for a coach. Now, I'm not speaking of scouts. Scouts, that's their job. That's their life. It's to dig backgrounds on and meet the guys when they can personally. That's their job. But as a coach, when you start getting exposed to these guys, I can't count the number of guys that I've interviewed face to face at length all the years that I've been at the combine, because they've got. The visits that you're allowed to in your room with the 18 minutes, that's one set of guys. But you have what they call the train station, where you can pull as many guys in there as you want to visit with positionally. And I can't count the hours I've spent with those kind of guys, sitting and being able to try to talk with them and visit with them face to face, and then try to corroborate what I got from a personal feel from them, and as to what I'm being told as people that have been working on them. That's something that you've got to develop a real feel for, but you've got to meet the people personally, in my opinion.
Well, Coach, we're near the finish line. I know you got a couple more things you got to do after this, but the draft's Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can hear Coach Mack, Amy Wells, Ramon Foster, Rhett Bryan, and, of course, Taylor Zarzor will be popping in as well, the new voice of the Tennessee Titans. Coverage begins at 6 p.m. Central Time, brought to you by Farm Bureau Health Plans, making health coverage easy since 1947. And, of course, Coach Mack's brought to us by Tourers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer. Coach Mack, looking forward to it. What do you do to wind down after the draft?
I may disappear for a while.
I like it. Go in on a
mean,
darkness
look,
retreat like Aaron Rodgers.
I love it. I love it. This is my 39th draft. I mean, and I absolutely love the process. And it's been a lot of work. I've really enjoyed talking this off season leading up to this draft with you two guys. You ask excellent questions. It's been fun.
Well, we appreciate you give excellent answers. So enjoy Thursday, enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, guys. See you.
See ya. All right, when we come back, we'll continue our talk on positional priority for the Tennessee Titans. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone.
Struggling with joint pain, suffering from a recent injury, looking to recover faster after surgery? Well, at Edge, we've got you covered. From powerful peptide stack like BPC 157 or TB 500 to PRP treatments, stem cell therapy, and high film muscle stimulation, Edge Peptide is your go-to solution for faster healing and recovery. And as an athlete myself, I know how frustrating pain and injuries can be. That's why now is the perfect time to take control of your wellness and finally address those nagging issues. Whether it's golf, tennis, or any activity you love, don't let pain hold you back any longer. And Edge specializes in regenerative treatments designed to reduce inflammation, promote tissue repair, and improve mobility, helping your body heal naturally while avoiding surgery whenever possible. And right now, we're offering a free $250 consultation with your initial treatment. And all you have to do is just go to edgepeptide.com. Yes, that's edgepeptide.com, or you can give them a call today at 615, of course, 724-1878. That's 724-1878.
Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 104.5 The Zone, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Stores. 615-737-1045 is the number. Let's go to Tommy, who wants to talk about the NFL draft. And Tommy Hilfinger, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Thanks for taking my call. I think the Titans are probably making the right choice with the number 1 pick. But I'm telling you, I watched that Hey Rookie show on ESPN the other night, and they were interviewing Will Howard, and he was talking about, hey, nobody wanted me out of high school. I went to Kansas State, wanting to go to Penn State and other big schools, and it was my vendetta to make them pay for not taking me. And he told every team in his interview for the NFL draft, if you don't take me, I'm going to hold it against you, and it's going to be a big mistake. Now, maybe all the players say that, but I'm telling you, he was one of the best quarterbacks I saw last year. I know he didn't do very good, I think, in the combine, but I think he might be a steal for somebody. I just want to see what y'all thought about it.
Thanks, Tommy. We've talked about Will Howard, kind of in the same vein of Kyle McCord, is that if they land in the right situation with the right staff, they can turn in something. And that's really a lot to do with a lot of these prospects. It doesn't have to be quarterback. It could be any of these prospects. So to me, I really like Will Howard. I know that someone just put in the F&M Bank chat, Josh Rosen said the same thing, but nobody believed Josh Rosen. But like Will Howard is a different animal, and that's why I do think that if he landed with somewhere like you brought up a really good one in Las Vegas I didn't think of. I said the Rams, a situation where he gets to learn behind one of those teams that has a guy on a 2-year deal with veterans. I think he could really turn into something later.
Yeah, I really do. I like his athleticism. He has a big time arm. He's tough. And then everybody tries to use against him. He played at Ohio State with all the weapons. Well, so did C.J. Stroud. I mean, what are you talking about? All the quarterback before that,
right?
I mean, so I just
Joe Burrow.
I mean, we can go down the list. So I was just
that's just not a good excuse.
I just think he's just not graded as high as some other guys. He's going to get on the right situation and be good, solid backup initially, and probably he will get his shot. Maybe he could turn into maybe Kirk Cousins, because I always use him because I never thought he would be as good as he is. And when I say that, I'm talking about he's got the most guaranteed money. I know that's probably changed now than any quarterback before the Watson deal in the entire NFL. So obviously the NFL valued what they saw in him as time went on there, even after he had 2 one-year deals as a franchise quarterback with the then Redskins. So, I think he could turn into something good, but it's going to take a second, and it's going to have to be on a team where he doesn't have the pressure on him to be a success immediately. And I think sometimes that's valuable, because then the pressure's not on you. And Cam Moore probably said the same thing. I would think he would say the same thing too, by the way. All the I think it was what's the guy, St. Brown, the receiver. He knows all the receivers' numbers,
Tomorrow,
names.
I'm sure I probably have told the story about the time the Tennessee Titans drafted Des Fitzpatrick, but tomorrow I will tell that story if I have not done it.
You want to St. Brown, huh?
Oh, yeah. So it's funny. I was laughing a little bit while you were talking, is because I saw someone just say that a guy named Exposing the Truth on YouTube, that's his username, said the Titans have a 7th and an 8th round pick. And I'm thinking, man, this guy's not exposing any truth right now. So real quick, I'm kind of with you. Wide receiver is likely my priority number 1 in this draft. I would say edge is a close second, similar fashion, like you said, outside of quarterback. I would say I would go back with you, circle back around a wide receiver. I would also circle back around to edge. I would say that if I'm this team, I want 2 wide receivers, 2 edges, because I'm with you. I think there's a lot of players you can get later. I would add as a priority in that kind of 5th round, not necessarily because I believe it, but I think they believe it. And I think that is running back, because Brian Callahan said last year that you need 3 good running backs, and that was at the combine last year. This year, just today, In that press conference, he said that you need 3 good running backs. So I would venture to say that I think I'm leaning towards running backs a priority. I think blocking tight end is a priority, but I do think the defensive line rotation, I think they're going to take advantage of defensive line and this cornerback class in some form or fashion because they're both good and they're both pretty deep. So I kind of then want to bump those ahead of running back and tight end, but I would say that if you're looking for 8 players, 2 wide receivers, 2 edges, 1 cornerback, 1 running back, 1 tight end, and 1 defensive line player. How that all plays out in order, I don't know, but that's how I would look at their top 8 needs.
Yeah, well, I just don't know if I would take a tight end late.
Yeah, it'd be tough, but it's again, I go back to not having a 7th round pick. So I almost wonder when they do a trade back if they don't try to pick up a 7th round pick. Because I know that doesn't sound like it's very consequential to building a roster, but that 7th round pick, I'm kind of looking at 69 players pass you by.
Yeah.
Don't you want to dip in a little bit into that 69?
Or do they trade back, pick up more picks
Maybe
when they're at 35?
I'm hoping that's what they do. Right now, I would venture to say that no matter what priority list the positions are in, trade back trumps all. As far as number 2, it would have to be a pretty special player in their eyes, not in our eyes, because I get the feeling that we view Luther Burden a little bit differently than they view Luther Burden. I don't think Luther Burden's going to be there, but just throwing that out there. So I look at it and I go, okay, maybe Luther Burden's not the player that stops them from trading back. Maybe he probably should be, in my opinion, but that's my opinion. You know what I'm saying? I've never met Luther Burden. So there you go. But I do think trade back trumps all. We're going to have a fun show tomorrow. I got a couple of questions lined up for Blaine that we want to get to. We're also going to talk about draft do's and don'ts as well. This is Cover 2 with Blaine Bishop and Zach Lyons here on 105 The Zone. 3HL's up next. And in the meantime.
And in between time. Peace.
Two Rivers Ford announces employee pricing for everyone. Every tradesman, every dad, every rising star. You pay what we pay. Two Rivers Ford. Locally owned. American.